We set out to watch Fox News for a full week and report back on how it might be brainwashing your friends. But honestly, we didn't even need the whole week. Just watching the first half of Laura Ingraham's show made it painfully clear. There's a method to the madness, and it's not journalism. So instead of cramming it all into one video, we're breaking it up so we can show you exactly how the manipulation works, piece by piece. And don't worry, we're not just picking on Fox, we'll pick on someone else next. MSNBC is not clean on OPSEC. Here at Spin Cycle, our mission is to help people break out of their echo chambers and start having real conversations about what we actually have in common. This is about awareness and helping people break the spin. Let's dive in. We start with Laura Ingraham's show on March 24th, 2025. Laura opens her show by acknowledging the biggest news of the day. Reports that members of Trump's national security team may have shared classified military plans on Signal with a journalist from The Atlantic. She flags it as a breaking story and notes that they're waiting for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth to land in Hawaii to address it. Then, she jumps straight to Trump being cheered at a wrestling match, comparing him to Captain America. From there, she pivots into judicial rulings that blocked his executive orders and accuses the courts of being part of a rogue resistance. Let's listen in.
But first, two Americas, two champions. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Over the past 48 hours, we've seen the story of Donald Trump and two Americas. In Philadelphia Saturday night at the NCAA Division I Wrestling Championships, the crowd at Wells Fargo Center seemed to overwhelmingly approve of Trump and his agenda. And then the man whose November victory was the biggest political comeback of all time, sitting right there in front, was there to witness the biggest upset in the sport's history.
This could be it! Oh my goodness! The biggest upset in the history of the NCAA! Could this be it? Yes! He has done it!
It was a storybook America moment, like a scene ripped from a patriotic Hollywood film from the 80s. A beloved and appreciated American president. I think I watched this maybe 5 times. Then to today, when the reception Trump received through his lawyers wasn't an embrace, it was a rebuff. Judges in 3 different jurisdictions trying to rein in the sitting president, who was elected to make good on a clear set of campaign promises. The rogue resistance is real. The myriad lawsuits against the Trump administration have one aim: to make it impossible for him to implement key parts of his agenda. Now, they aim to drown him and the DOJ in a nonstop wave of litigation, challenging everything from his move to separate transgender troops from military service, to shrinking the federal workforce, to deporting the most dangerous illegal aliens imaginable. Now, the idea that any plaintiff with standing can forum shop for the most liberal jurisdiction, then one judge in that district can stop the president's policies, it's obscene.
This is classic propaganda. Create an emotional hero and then give the audience a villain to blame. The message is clear. Trump is the people's champion, and the courts are corrupt obstacles to his greatness. But here's the problem. The courts are literally doing their job. She frames legal oversight as sabotage. But judicial review is a foundational part of democracy. Ignoring it isn't patriotic. It's authoritarian. And the spin doesn't stop there. Laura talks about Trump's mandate, about partisan judges, and a rogue resistance. Buzzwords designed to inflame, not inform. She throws in culture war terms like transgender to rile up her audience. But what she never does is explain the actual rulings. She never mentions the fact that the administration ignored court orders or acted without legal authority. That's not just bias, that's omission by design. And let's just ask the most obvious question. Who are we even at war with? The Alien Enemies Act only applies in wartime. Congress has to declare it. That hasn't happened. So unless we're at war with El Salvador now, and someone forgot to tell the Pentagon, this entire legal argument collapses like a wet napkin. Next, she turns to Pete Hegseth, who's accused of texting classified military plans to a journalist. Instead of investigating the seriousness of the leak, she calls the journalist a hoax peddler and praises Hegseth for focusing on the mission. This is how Fox reprograms loyalty, by shifting the focus from what happened to who you should be mad at. The person leaking classified info? He's fine, because he's on their side. The person reporting on it? He's the enemy. Truth doesn't matter, tribe does. Then it gets worse. Laura brings on Senator Josh Hawley to continue the theme that Trump is being unfairly blocked, this time by so-called activist judges. Hawley argues that district courts shouldn't have the power to issue nationwide injunctions. He calls it abusive. He calls it unconstitutional. He calls it unprecedented. And Laura agrees. She even floats the idea that Congress should limit how and where challenges to presidential authority can be filed, suggesting that some cases should bypass lower courts altogether and go straight to the Supreme Court. Hear it for yourself.
The resistance that Trump is coming up against, Senator, in the courts. We went through 3 cases today, various cases. One a Maryland district judge, one a D.C. district judge, and another Democrat appointee on the transgender issue in the military. But this is a well-funded effort, and it's met with some success on key administration policies. So my question to you is, I understand you have legislation in the works that could address some of the issues that are plaguing this administration coming out of what are activist courts and an activist agenda.
Absolutely. The key thing to do here, Laura, is to end the ability of these district courts to abuse their judicial authority by issuing these so-called nationwide injunctions. Laura, I don't think they have that authority, properly speaking, under the Constitution, Article 3. What they're doing is they're purporting, these judges, they're purporting to go out and to bind parties and individuals who aren't before them. They're purporting to bind people who aren't in their district. We only have one Supreme Court that can bind the whole nation. District courts aren't supposed to be able to do it, and yet President Trump has been subject already to 15 separate so-called nationwide injunctions. In his first term, Laura, there were 64. We have never seen anything like this in American history. It's incredibly abusive, and Congress ought to end it. And we can end it by just saying no nationwide injunctions by these district courts.
There's another.
So, Hawley says no president in U.S. history has ever faced this level of legal obstruction. And honestly, that might be the first true thing anyone says in the segment. Because no other president in American history has attempted this much legally questionable activity and gotten caught this often. If you're breaking norms left and right, of course you're going to run into more legal challenges. That's not bias, that's consequences. And here's what they don't say. Judicial review isn't activism. It's literally the job of the courts. Under Article 3 of the Constitution, judges are empowered to evaluate the legality of executive actions. And when a policy is likely to cause widespread harm or violates the rights of many people, nationwide injunctions are entirely appropriate. Courts have used them for decades, under both Republican and Democratic presidents. Hawley's claim that district courts shouldn't be able to block actions outside their jurisdiction sounds reasonable, until you realize what he's really suggesting, gutting the court's ability to check presidential power. Ingraham and Hawley want to reframe legal accountability as sabotage. But what they're actually promoting is an executive branch with fewer limits and fewer consequences. This is propaganda technique number 5. Delegitimize oversight. Rewrite the rules. Paint checks and balances as partisan attacks. They're not defending the Constitution. They're trying to rewrite it to serve a single person. Next, Laura shifts gears to Trump bragging about how his administration is slashing government waste. She lists a series of contracts and grants with zero explanation, using sarcasm and outrage to make them sound absurd on the surface. We get rapid-fire examples like $830 million for surveys, $300,000 educating transgender farmers, $600,000 studying the menstrual cycles of transgender men. There's no attempt to explain what these programs are actually for. Here's what's left out. The USDA funds outreach and training for underserved communities. Transgender farmers are just part of broader inclusion efforts to ensure equal access to education and federal programs. The menstrual cycle study likely falls under public health research aimed at improving care for marginalized groups, including those who are often overlooked in traditional studies. The $830 million for surveys? Probably a large-scale data collection contract, possibly required for planning, compliance, or grant distribution, something most governments routinely fund. But instead of providing context, Laura uses these as culture war bait, knowing the mere mention of anything related to trans people will provoke a reaction in her audience. This is propaganda technique number 4. Omit context, use buzzwords, trigger outrage. It's not about whether the spending is justified or effective, it's about weaponizing identity and framing anything outside a narrow worldview as government overreach or woke insanity. The irony? This segment isn't about waste at all. It's about manufacturing enemies and reinforcing the idea that conservative viewers are the only sane people left. In the next segment, Laura brings in Trump's border czar, Tom Homan, and the theme is clear. The courts are protecting criminals, and ICE is the last line of defense. First, they celebrate a recent ICE operation in Boston that led to 370 arrests. Homan claims the majority were public safety threats. Murderers, child rapists, traffickers. It's an emotional appeal that's hard to argue with. Who wouldn't want violent criminals off the street? But here's the thing. They use the most extreme examples to justify sweeping enforcement practices, ignoring the reality that many ICE arrests involve nonviolent people, asylum seekers, or individuals with minor offenses. And when local officials don't comply with ICE detainers, which are not legally binding warrants, Homan and Ingraham frame it as betrayal. Then the segment shifts from fear to something even more dangerous: outright dismissal of due process. Homan defends mass deportations under the Alien Enemies Act, even when judges push back and demand individualized hearings to determine if someone actually poses a threat. And when a judge says that Nazis got more process than these detainees, instead of grappling with the legal concern, Homan goes full deflection.
Tom, Judge Patricia Millett actually said, and she knew she was going to be quoted, and this is why she said it in open court today in the D.C. Court of Appeals, again, the same case. She said that Nazis were given more process than the individuals removed under the Alien and Enemies Act. Your response to her?
Well, it's just another example of out-of-touch a judge, an activist judge, making a comparison. Are you kidding me? To the Holocaust and Nazis? First, what the hell has that got to do with anything? We're talking about Aliens Enemies Act. We're talking about terrorists being deported from the United States. It's disgusting she even said that, and to just try to evoke more, nonsense on the left media, whatever. But it's a ridiculous statement to make. And again, it's another example of an activist judge who doesn't understand, or probably understands, but wants to push back against the Trump administration, who was given a mandate to arrest public safety threats and get them out of the country, especially terrorists. So, it is what it is, but I think DOJ will win this case, and we'll keep doing what we're doing. The president has made it clear. We're going to arrest illegal aliens. We're going to prioritize public safety threats and national security threats. We're going to continue to do it. We're going to do it without apologies, especially in sanctuary cities who let these people hit the streets and create a public safety issue.
Yeah, these judges have to be reined in by Congress ultimately. Tom, as always, thank you very much.
This is not justice. This is propaganda, disguised as news, delivered like stand-up, and aimed straight at your uncle's Facebook feed. Due process is not a courtesy. It's a constitutional right. What Homan is promoting is a license to make people disappear, with no hearing, no evidence, no appeal. That should scare the hell out of every American, no matter their politics, because if the government can do it to them, it can do it to you. This is where the segment stops being about law and order and becomes a push for unchecked power. And by the way, anyone else think that Tom Homan is the perfect crime boss for a Marvel comic? Love to hear your comments on that one. So here's Fox's spin cycle. Step 1, make Trump the hero. Step 2, paint all opposition as corrupt. Step 3, rewrite legal norms as obstacles to justice. Step 4, use fear and culture war outrage to keep the base angry. Step 5, repeat, night after night. Fox News isn't just delivering biased coverage, it's delivering a worldview, one where truth is subjective, law is optional, and loyalty is everything. And if you're wondering why your conservative friends seem so confident about things that are factually wrong, now you know. They didn't come to those conclusions. They were guided there, every single night.